As a provider committed to personalized care, I can't afford to waste time chasing labs or waiting days for answers. That's where Access Labs makes all the difference. They test over 1,000 biomarkers, from routine chemistry to advanced hormones, weight management, and beyond, with results available in just 24 hours. No delays, no hassle, just smarter, faster diagnostics. Their flexible collection options support independent practices, multi-location clinics, and even virtual care models. If speed and simplicity are essential to your practice, visit accessmedlab.com/get started to receive 10% off your first invoice. Hey everybody, Dr. Rob here, Proven Health Alternatives. I'm excited. I have got, this guy's gonna raise the roof. He's exciting. We were talking before, Dr. Ivan Rusilko, and I told him I'm gonna make a mistake with his name at least one time, but he's gonna share some knowledge bombs in the next 35 minutes that everybody get your pen, get your paper, write it down. Doc, how are you? Thanks for coming. Look at that smile. Let's go.
Oh, rock and roll, man. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor to be on here. Again, I've been nerding out on you all day. And again, I got to say, it's always an honor to speak to people who are true masters of their craft. And again, that's exactly what you are. So again, thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. And thanks for taking time out of your busy day to share with my followers. So why don't you give a little background about yourself? I mean, you're an interesting guy. I mean, your dad was a chiropractor.
He was a chiropractor, and my dad taught me two lessons. Number one was always leave it better than when you found it. But number two is never be the richest guy, the best looking guy, the strongest guy at the table. Always be the most interesting. So I've kind of built my entire life as well as my entire medical practice around that. So definitely, it's been an interesting 41 years of life so far, and I'm expecting the next 100 years to be just as cool.
You are without question a trailblazer. Bodybuilder, model, medical doctor, influencer. You got a lot going on, my man. You're doing a great job. I approve.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really, really do.
So let's dig in. Doc, you've been ahead of the curve when it comes to cellular health, without question. For those new to this concept, what exactly does cellular health mean? Why is it such a big deal how we age, heal, and perform? It's loaded. Go for it.
That's a very loaded question. And again, I always like to start out and sit there and say, nobody really knows the exact number. They estimate from 40 to 100 trillion cells in your body. So I think any common sense based physician would sit there and think, let's make our cells function the best we can before we worry about nutrition, hormones, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And when it comes to what cellular health truly is, it's the production, I think, of ATP, along with genetics and everything else. But for the premise of this conversation is that how our mitochondria actually are able to function effectively. And you hear a lot of stuff in the media today, NAD and all this kind of stuff. And again, which I think is phenomenal. I've been doing NAD in my practice since 2012. So it's not an or I'm sorry, it's not something new to the playing field. It's just I think a lot of physicians have finally caught up. And I think the ability to sit there and be able to have your mitochondria produce more ATP, you provide more, I call it the energy goodness bank in the middle of your chest, which you literally have more energy to produce your immune system and your gut health, which I think you and me agree on are two of the most important things in your system, your neuro health, your mentality, your physicality, your emotionality, your sexuality, all the fun things that make human beings human.
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. We've heard that since seventh grade. Here's a little interesting add to it. This way we can catapult together and get people to new heights. Mitochondria actually has an immune component to it. It has the ability to phagocyze bacteria. So our mitochondria is directly related to our immune health. So when you talk about cellular health, that's a great add. And mitochondria's origin come from bacteria, so it's assisted to the gut. So you've got all this together in mitochondria. So you doing that cellular health mitochondria, that's cutting edge stuff.
Oh, it's got to be. And again, I think everybody doesn't understand. And again, whenever I do a lot of talks just like you do and a lot of conferences and a lot of consulting, and I think the most important thing for a physician or anybody who's in the healthcare industry is to understand the basics. And one of the most important things is how does a mitochondria work? It needs substrate, NADH, FADH2. And one of the most important things that people don't get is it needs oxygen. Oxidative phosphorylation is the basis of how this juggernaut burns fat. And we all want to look good, right? Everybody's on GLP-1s and all this other kind of stuff. But the most important aspect is how do you actually burn the fat? And your mitochondria is your best friend for that. So what I always try to tell my patients, I never have a one-stop shop treatment. It's always a stack. It's always a combination of different types of peptides, hormones, nutrients, whatever it could be, that make whatever target I have function the most effectively. And in this case, it's mitochondria. So my biggest aspect is actually getting the actual substrate there. So things like NAD, injectables. I do the nicotinamide riboside, which I think is my favorite aspect of the oral precursor to it. I use a lot of things which a lot of physicians don't understand. Riboflavin is probably the most important thing for FADH2. That's its precursor. So if you're going to get one going, why not get them both going? You need both those working in unison. Then you have to find things that actually help the NAD and things work for the actual electron transport chain. Things like 5-amino-1-MQ. There's that SLUP PP332 out there that tricks your body into actually going into cardiovascular exercise, which I think is hilarious. But then I think one of the most important things, which I think has gotten such a good rap, but nobody understands how it works, is methylene blue. The way the methylene blue donates the oxygen because of how it actually does the redox reaction. And I can nerd out biochemistry all day with you, but it basically provides the oxygen to help, accept the actual hydrogens, which makes your mitochondria work even more effectively in producing ATP, cellular energy, which is good for everything. And that's my pitch on ATP.
Whoa, a lot to unbox there. So I want to play devil's advocate because you're a nice guy. I finally have someone I can.
I love
Methylene
it.
blue. Okay. Obviously, you're positive for it.
Mhm. Well, in the right instance. And again,
Okay.
methylene blue can be diabolical. It can be one of the worst things you possibly do. That's why diagnostic testing is one of the most important things that we do. Also, if you're taking things like SSRIs, it can kill you. So or if you have a G6PD deficiency, it's not going to be a good day for you. So again, you have to be very selective. And again, that's why I work very closely with my lab to basically sit there and make sure that the patient qualifies for it first. Also that they're hydrated, their kidney function is proper. As long as all the parameters are met, methylene blue is phenomenal. If they're not met, steer clear of it.
So you clearly adhere to the concept of testing and not guessing.
Exactly. Again, precision medicine is based off of diagnostic testing. I've been doing this, and again, the most expensive part of coming to me is usually the actual diagnostic testing. And that's the crazy thing. Patients will come in and say, why am I spending $5,000 on lab testing? Because I want this program to be for you, not just about your demographic. And once we have that, it's precision based. And the results you get, I don't have to use as much medication and peptides and all these other things. They say throw enough shit against the wall, something will stick. I mean? No, we don't do that here. We throw the specific aspects where it needs to be. We throw darts. And that's what precision, diagnostic testing really does for me.
Before I close the chapter on supplements and protocols for mitochondria, let me ask you about something new that people are talking about, ergothioneine. Want to know where you stand on that?
I'm a fan of it. I think there's more things that can actually help benefit the mitochondria better. I always try to basically, pick apart what's the most effective thing, and when it comes to cost for patients. So the formula I use that I mentioned before is one of my favorites. I use that in the supplementation aspect as well. If a patient's just coming in for strictly mitochondria or cellular health, or if we're also doing senescent cell clearance, because I tell everybody, which I think you can appreciate, whenever you're going through and trying to eliminate things like zombie cells or senescent cells, just because you kill them, that's half the battle. You need the mitochondria, the ATP, the immune system to actually clear all the debris out from what you've killed. You can't have all these proteases and all the terraforming, all these different aspects of what you are. So when it comes to those kind of programs, I use that fantastically. I combine that with Apogen and all other kinds of things as well. It's not my first line treatment because we're usually tackling many things, but it's phenomenal for the actual program overall.
You said NAD, correct?
Correct.
That NMN to NAD or NAD?
So again, when you take a look at the study, and again, I might look like a cowboy, but I do love, the whole aspect of, being a student for life. When you take a look at it, you have NR, NMN, and then NAD. NR is kind of where it starts, and that molecule is small enough to get to where it needs to go. They've shown numerous studies that NMN is actually too large to get to where it actually needs to go. So it needs to be broken back down to NR and then get into the actual processing of it. If you take a look at that, I know there's a million different people who love NMN, and again, it makes sense. It's right before NAD, but the size of it, just like glutathione and things like that, or collagen protein, is tough to absorb certain things that are certain sizes. I've seen with nicotinamide riboside, the research not only in animals but most importantly human models is phenomenal. There's not too many legitimate, I guess you would say, research based off of NMN. There's a lot of animal, studies, but again, last time I checked, I didn't have a tail.
I mean, you gave some clarity to that because I hear so many people arguing, well, if I take NMN, I don't have to take NAD. NAD, is it NAD? Is it NAD plus? Is it NADH? All that kind of stuff. So I still think people are very confused. They throw the terms out, but you really gave, like I said, some true clarity. You've worked with patients from all walks of life. You've got tremendous diversity in the people that you see. What are the top 5 markets or patient groups that are effectively seeking cellular health therapies today? And why don't you think we're seeing such growth in those areas? Again, a lot to unbox.
No, a lot to unbox, and it's funny. So I'm in South Beach. I'm in the heart of South Beach. Sex, fun, sun, bikinis. So I started out. I graduated very early. I started as a full-fledged physician at 26. And again, I came out and it was just sun, fun, bikinis, sex, fitness, and fat loss. That's all I treated. I was at the Four Seasons, then I took over the penthouse at the Delano. It's been a very, very fun aspect of building my career to a certain aspect. I also, for the A4M, was the first physician male to go through the female sexual health protocol. So it's a situation where it's like I knew my demographic and I stayed there. And it was kind of unique. Once you start treating the housewives of Miami, you'll see after about 2 months, the house husbands or the husbands will come in and be like, whatever she's on, get her off or put me on it. Because now you're not only like what a lot of doctors and people don't understand is when you're treating a patient, you're not just treating a patient. You're treating the patient and their family, their direct aspects around it, their patient and with their business. Because if you can get a patient to feel better, it's going to augment the life of everybody around them, including their business. If you get a patient to feel worse, then it's a whole storm you have to deal with. So it's funny how over my 15 years of doing this, I've transitioned from fun, sun, and bikinis, and just now I'm treating basically I'm the doctor of last hope. So we have people flying from all over the world, whether it's neurodegeneration. We've had tremendous success with things like Parkinson's and dementia. We've had phenomenal success with cancer. I mean, I'm talking cancer like everything from stage 4 breast to small cell lung carcinomas. I mean, everything in between, the way it goes. It's because we treat here, we don't treat you like you have cancer. We don't treat you like you have an autoimmune issue. We treat you like you're a person of that age who wants to feel better because your body is a function. Your body's a machine. So if you sit there and try to baby and not do it the right way, as long as you're doing it smart, that person, my kind of motto is I got cancer to get healthier. So I right now I'm treating more chronic issues than I am treating these, fitness, fat loss, and, sexual dysfunction. It's kind of unique, especially with, what this practice started out as.
So you fix the body from the inside out.
Inside, again, that precision
Universal.
medicine leads it up for everything.
The body's all interconnected. We've talked about that before.
Yep,
Precision
mentality,
medicine.
physicality, emotionality, all interrelated.
So when they come to you, they're not getting with the proverbial Band-Aid on a bullet wound you used before the Band-Aid on a hemmorrage. They're
Yep,
getting to
there's
that
no
root
Band-Aids on hemorrhage.
cause. It's outstanding. That's the way, it's funny. We talked about it before about where's our field going? What does the crystal ball look like? And I think we just encapsulated what we think the crystal ball should look like, and it's probably
Like
going to look like for a lot of people adhering to function.
like you said, root cause medicine. And again, we talked about that kind of before we got on the podcast. I think root cause medicine is medicine. Everything else is just a shade of business. And again, a lot of people don't understand medicine is a business. And we saw that during COVID. I mean, it's a situation whereas, do no harm to your patients, as the Hippocratic Oath says, is great. But at the end of the day, it's, what does better harm for my pocketbook? And usually it's CEOs and big pharma who dictate that. So the aspect is now a burden that the physician has to kind of put on their shoulders. If you're a traditional doctor, you kind of have to break through and be like, well, maybe I should just give antibiotics to everybody. Maybe I should see why they're getting sick. Or maybe cholesterol medication is not the answer because everybody's getting rhabdomyolysis and their hormones are falling apart because, cholesterol is the number one thing that turns into sex hormones or the myelination of your brain. So there's a bit of common sense medicine that I think needs to really be addressed, which I think we're actually finally starting to get to. And we're making that turn. The wellness industry globally is at $6.7 trillion, looking to gain $2 trillion in the next year. Wow. That growth is better than, that's better than a Fortune 500 company because patients are finally waking up. Health isn't free. And like we had talked about earlier, the patient needs to start taking responsibility, not only in finding the right practitioner, but also the right lifestyle changes they need to make. Diet, exercise, hydration, and sleep are some of the most important things that are free. And every patient needs to start paying attention, and every physician damn well better know how to actually prescribe those things properly.
If I had to do one thing, and I've said this before, take one thing away from a lifestyle, it would be ultra processed food. There's a study now that still everybody's aware of it, and over 50% of our calories in America are consumed as adults of ultra processed foods.
Terrifying.
It's horrifying. And that would just be the start. But it's interesting because most people walk into your clinic with some form of symptoms: fatigue, brain fog, inflammation, gas, and bloating, but rarely connect them to their cells. What are the top conditions you see that trace back to poor cellular health? And how do you help patients connect the dots?
I try to sit there and I think the number one thing, I think you kind of hit it in the head when it comes to the food. I always tell people you can't drive a Ferrari on an empty tank. So I think how you nourish your cells, and especially again, your cells, like I said, are the root cause of everything in your system. So maximizing how your cells work, number one, is the most important thing. You'll start to see patients, and it's usually kind of a buzzword, if you have chronic back pain. Chronic back pain is just a buildup of, like I said, senescent cells, cells that aren't doing it, and they start to terraform the area. They get more inflammatory. Then that one cell turns the next cell into a zombie cell, then the next cell. And the aspect is that means their immune system isn't well enough to help clear these things out. Cancer is not a disease. It's just us not paying attention to our health. Cancer is stress, and cancer is sugar. To me, is what I see, and it kind of comes across the board with it. And it's a situation where there's so much common sense that we know. I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, convenience is king as a human. And the aspect is we'll sit there, oh, I know there's artificial sweetener in it, but I need it. Or it's just easy, I'll just order it from Uber Eats. You know you're ordering poison, but we have no better options this day and age. So I think the nourishment aspect is we need to start to see better delivery or better options, or we just need to cut it out like cancer. I mean, proverbially and figuratively. I mean, like get rid of it. And I think that's kind of the most important thing we see. Your cells get gunked up, your mitochondria gets all discombobulated when you're not providing the right nutrients for it to run correctly. It's like putting diesel into a gas-based engine and you're expecting it to work. It's not going to work.
So you start with lifestyle, and under lifestyle, obviously, is going to be exercise, sleep, stress, water, bathroom habits, and maybe the biggest thing is food.
Food, no, nutrition, and I want to go on what is it, a fasting diet. And again, like I'm not against it. I get why they're trying to do it. People understand that the more you fast, the more you stress your cells, the more they divide, the smaller the actual telomeres get. So you're kind of also aging your cells in a back-assward way. But also you sit there as
so
long as
happy. I don't mean to interrupt you. I am so happy you said that because I'm a big believer in a 12 to 16 hour fast is fine, but these days fasts, these water
oh no, it's
fasts,
too much.
that it's our body responds it's called hormesis to a slight stress. I am so happy you mentioned that. So if anybody has a pen and paper, take that down. Intermittent fasting, time restrictive eating, 12, 14, maybe 16 hours. Men and women are different. We're not going to talk about that now. You heard it. Dr. Ivan said so. But
No,
I'm
it's
going to put the
true.
brakes on. I need to know something. You had talked about testing, not guessing. What are some of your non-negotiables? Or if I come into you, I'm turning 60 next month. What are you going to test me for? And then I'm going to bring my 53-year-old wife. What are you going to test her for?
You're going to find this funny, and I guarantee everybody on this is going to be like, why is he worried about that? A very in-depth iron panel. As crazy as that is, the most important thing in our body is what? Oxygen. Nothing happens without oxygen, correct? So the aspect is everybody checks iron. And again, men and women, unfortunately, we're seeing, what is it? 70% of men, teenagers this day have less testosterone than 70-year-olds like, 20 years ago. And again, testosterone is very important for the actual, how iron is actually stored in the body. So what we're seeing is when it comes to it, and my favorite tests, the TIBC, the percent saturation, the iron, the ferritin, all those things, you'll say, oh, his iron's normal because the total iron's great. If the percent saturation, if the TIBC, if the ferritin's off, you need to make a couple extra steps being like, yeah, he's got okay iron, but it's shit. It's not connecting the oxygen properly. And this is why whenever I give a lecture, especially on things like methylene blue, the reason I like methylene blue for a lot of people is because of how it actually works. Methylene blue is used for something called methemoglobinuria. It's a mouthful, I know, and a lot of biochem coming at you, but it'll be very quick. The way that works is, so iron has to be charged at a +2, which is called its ferrous state. If it's charged at its ferrous state, oxygen comes in, binds nice, it goes until it finds an acidic environment. Okay, whether you're working out and you have lactic acid, or you have a cancer, or you have autoimmune, whatever it could be, that's wherever the blood turns acidic is where the actual oxygen gets left off. It goes back and picks up another one because oxygen helps heal. So what happens with methylene blue, it comes through, and a lot of people who have things like high sugar, which everybody does this day and age because of the processed food we're eating and the nonsense we do, or turbulent blood or things like that, that tends to wax more and cause iron to be more in the ferric state, Ferric, which is a +3. So what happens is as that iron or the hemoglobin comes by in the red blood cell, that oxygen bounces off of it. So now you've just missed an entire round of oxygen with this red blood cell that's going through, and it's basically like an empty vessel. So the biggest aspect is when I sit there and see somebody, a man or a woman who comes in with normal iron, but TIBC off or percent saturation off, I'm still going at them very hardcore with it. And to see how that actually works, and it's usually neuro propagation. You sort of say, wow, I feel more awake right now. It's because you also have an HbA1c of 7. You have your HSCRPs through the roof, that kind of stuff. And a simple iron panel for me can change everything from cancer to ED and everything in between. It's fascinating.
Wow. What hormone panels, or what are you looking for in hormones in both men and women?
So yeah, again, testosterone, but also importantly, free testosterone. I mean, you can do bioavailable if you want to. Free is good enough for me. So that's one of the biggest ones there. Because again, like we talked about in a previous thing was, muscle mass. The amount of muscle you carry in your body, muscle's metabolic. So one of the most important things in there. I currently right now, because I'm training for a boxing match, I'm about 205. Usually I sit around 220, and I'm a pretty big guy. Body fat percent's usually around 8% or so. So for me to get up and lay in my bed, and we diagnosed this at the last show I talked at, it's 3,500 calories. So if I don't consume 3,500 calories for my BMR, I literally lose weight. Okay. And that's because my body is this is probably my fourth shirt today, because my body is just so energetic and just turning over everything over. Heat and sweat is how your body clears toxins and how it helps with infections and things like that. I haven't been sick in, I'd say, maybe 15 years. You know what I mean? So the aspect of testosterone and things like IGF-1, which both help propagate not only muscle size, but muscle strength, are two of the biggest things that we always look at. I like IGF-1 too, because it also helps me give me a good gauge of sleep. Because I test everything in the morning, no fitness, no food, no fornication, for about 8 hours. Okay. And what happens is when you see that IGF on the low end, you're like, this person's not getting enough delta sleep cycles. And again, a lot of people think sleep is just turn your eyes off and go to bed. Sleep is one of the most complicated processes we do in our body, from the cycles to the different types of sleep. So if you aren't getting the right types of sleep, you're going to see somebody who has low IGF, either a high cortisol and high DHEA, or a low cortisol and a low DHEA if they got into the actual adrenal fatigue aspect of it, which are two of my favorite hormones to test as well. Because DHEA and cortisol, those are your adrenal glands. That's your stress response. And just like with diabetes, you have too much sugar, your pancreas cramps out with no insulin. Too much stress, your body's going to crap out with the DHEA and cortisol. Now you can't really function properly. So my biggest ones, which again are going to be testosterone, free and total, IGF-1. You can do IGF-1 BP3 if it's low, then a DHEA and cortisol, because that's going to address something that not many people even think about, which is somatopause and adrenopause. We all know about menopause, right? Menopause is estrogen and progesterone go down. Women, have their issues, and we've been learning about that forever. Andropause is the exact same thing in men. That's why the dad bod is so relevant, because your testosterone dips. It's usually testosterone and DHEA are the two things that can identify you as being in adrenopause. Same thing with somatopause. Everything starts, again, it's all lifestyle based. So if you have a horrible lifestyle, that's going to happen quicker, just like in menopause. If you're smoking and doing all this kind of stuff, you're going to hit menopause much earlier. So I always like to treat not only menopause, but somatopause and adrenopause with all my patients, which requires a huge in-depth hormonal panel to do it right.
Wow. Again, that was a lot to unbox. So let me follow up. Are there
Rewind it and put it on slow-mo. I speak a lot
that was
fast,
a download. That was great. I'm going to give a general question. Are there specific markers or panels you consider non-negotiable when building a treatment plan for a person?
Yeah, well, I would say hormones. I need the basics. So CBC, CMP, lipids. Again, I'm a fan of high cholesterol. I'm very forthright about that. Cholesterol does everything for your system. It builds all your sex hormones. It's the entire 25% of your brain, or 25% of the weight of your brain is cholesterol. All your cells, vitamin D. So I check it anyway. And then when it comes to the actual non-negotiables, I love gut health. I think food sensitivity testing, just even if it's, some people love it, some people hate it, but if you're sitting there and you're consuming the same thing every single day and it shows up, variation in how your food works. And again, like we talked about, your food, your digestive tract is the second brain in your body. You know what I mean? Like, so if you sit there and you can continually pollute that, you get a leaky gut, your immune system goes off, and now you have a consistent source of inflammation, which takes away from your nutritional goodness bank, like we talked about earlier. You have that embezzling from it. So, all we do with the stressors is we try to find every single that's in your system, embezzling the actual ATP, the energy from your system, and I attack it that way. We do get in depth with things like natural killer cells, like really in-depth immune testing. Neurotransmitters, I think, is fascinating. Whenever somebody comes in who has any type of mental blocks or anxiety or depression, we really hit those hard. The nutrition, B12, all the Bs, we do the vitamin Ds, all the fat soluble vitamins. It's funny, Access has granted me, Access is the lab I use, the ability. I have the most in-depth lab tests in the world currently. We have 750 markers on it, which seems like overkill. But if you find that one marker, whether it's chronic EBV or Lyme or Candida or something that's weird that nobody ever checks, you just now solved chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, even long COVID. I mean, because you're going to sit there and see you have two viruses in your system, EBV, which pretty much everybody has, a reactivated form of that. The amount of nutrition that you have to pull away to create all these IgG, IgMs towards it, it's mind blowing. So again, like with me, I do have probably the most extensive and expensive lab testing in the world. But then again, my results speak for themselves. Even though it's in depth, we are treating everything from erectile dysfunction to cancer to Parkinson's disease with phenomenal success.
So most of these are blood serum tests. Am I correct?
Yeah, blood serum and urine.
So that's the standard bearer. So I'm coming in, I'm getting the whole kit and caboodle. I'm getting a full background check. I'm not getting total cholesterol, blood
No.
sugar.
I only do that for people who want it. You know what I mean?
just double checking. I know you do a lot of peptides, IV, ozone. In reference to cellular health, which one of them or all of them do you like?
Again, for peptides, I love things like the thymosin alpha. It's phenomenal for that. Surprisingly, IGF-1, just because the formula I have right now is CJC, ipamorelin, ceramorelin. And it's kind of funny. Everybody always asks why I add these last two ingredients. One is oxytocin and the other one is tadalafil. And you'll see tadalafil is phenomenal, not only for men and women at night. It helps induce delta sleep, but the oxytocin helps you get through alpha sleep. So the CJC, the ipamorelin, the ceramorelin help with the IGF-1 propagation, which is directly linked to immune responses, but more importantly, delta sleep or deep sleep, which I think is probably the most important thing for your actual immune system to work, which is one of my favorite things to do. So those are the peptides I use for the immune system. And then for the gut, oral BPC, I think is one of the best things you can possibly use. Sometimes we combine the oral BPC with thymosin beta or TB4, which is phenomenal. I really like that oral combination for the actual gut healing. They have liraglutide. I kind of stick more towards the BPC though for that one.
BBC 157, a great choice for overall gut health.
The Wolverine drug.
Yeah, Wolverine supplement, without question. And I think that mixed with KPV just really double downs on the idea of the gut
Phenomenal.
health.
KPV is a great one. Great one. Also, KPV helps out with the actual blood-brain barrier as well, which a lot of people don't understand. That's why I'm a big fan of KPV as well as oxytocin. We do a lot of things where we're trying to get things to past the blood-brain barrier, which is probably the hardest thing to possibly do in medicine. And things like oxytocin, KPV, they help open the blood-brain barrier. So things like exosomes or nutrients or anything else that we're putting in the system can actually get to the brain, help with BDNF propagation, and help with neuroplasticity.
BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is a great protein enzyme.
My favorite one, man. Cerebral lysin was my favorite peptide that they took off the market. It is literally the best peptide out there, bar none.
BDNF, brain miracle grow. Yeah.
It is.
So
it's the best.
if someone is listening and feel like I'm doing all the right things, I'm just hitting the wall, doc, what's one overlooked area of cellular health that could be sabotaging their progress?
Again, we'd have to look at their food. Again, whenever I have an issue, I know the science. I know what program they're doing. I know what their blood says, but I don't know what they do in their free time. Unless I follow them on Instagram and say, you were drinking champagne last night. No wonder your sleep was horrible. You know what I mean? So it's a situation whereas we go through, back in the day, I'm also a certified nutritionist, like I'd said. So I always want to make sure that food is one of the biggest things that we kind of review in my practice. Not only the frequency of eating, but the kind of food you're eating and when you're eating it, especially eating around times like when it comes to exercise. Thankfully enough, when I was doing the Mr. USA and all that kind of stuff, I became that bodybuilder. And I know right after high glycemic, then an hour after you exercise, low glycemic. So understanding when to eat the right foods is also very imperative. I do think one of the most important things is hydration, especially the type of water you drink. Tap water, as we've seen, is not the best option to go with. there's a lot of really good options out there, but the most important thing I tell everybody, and I even know the domain, Dr. Sleep. Sleep is the most important thing we do. I'm 41. I've slept 13 and a half years of my life. That's how important sleep is. And again, I tell everybody the best medicine is 4 good nights of sleep in a row. You can't have a peptide, a hormone, or anything else that touches what that does for your body.
Are you ready?
I'm in.
All right. Rapid fire, New York style.
I love it. Let's do it.
TRT, yay or nay?
Yay. In the right scenario.
Okay. HRT, yay or nay?
Done correctly, avoiding the negative feedback loops, yay.
Number one supplement. I know it's a tough one.
Nicotinamide riboside.
I thought you were going to tell me vitamin D, but that's a great one.
Oh, it's a tough one. That's rapid
I know
fire.
that was a tough one. That's not fair. If I come to you, what's the number one marker that you're going to look for?
Iron panel, an iron panel.
All right, longevity. What do you think the key to longevity is?
Experiential living. There's no sense in having a long life if you're not enjoying it. So make sure whatever you're doing, you have to have a good, fun life and goals. Goal setting, short and long term, most important thing.
Cardio before weights or weights before cardio?
Weights before cardio. Low intensity.
Especially if you're a little older, right?
Exactly.
So consistency wins the award. The turtle is there, and that's fabulous.
Exactly.
So if I asked you, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to say, for a man and for a woman, what's the best exercise to do when you're on the road?
When you're on the road, body weight, push-ups, sit-ups, and air squats.
Outstanding. Your favorite peptide for longevity?
The ones that we can legally prescribe. I think for longevity would be epitolone is a fantastic one. I think probably one of my favorites.
Where are you on the GLP-1?
If you need it, great. If you're microdosing, great. Long term, I think you're going to see a lot of different issues come up, and it's going to be a big issue, I think, in the future for people who aren't doing it properly. If you're doing it properly, super good. If you're not, if you're eating whatever you want, watch out.
I'm going to come back to TRT now. Number one complaint I hear is once I'm on, I'm always on. Is that correct?
Nope. Again, you are going to a physician who does not know how to do it. You need to manage every single negative feedback loop.
So to close out, because we're getting towards that finish line, I know you're busy. What advice would you give to patients who are curious about optimizing their cellular health?
It starts with them. And again, you can go to any physician. You go to the best physicians in the world, the most popular ones. Get on the best programs you can possibly be on, but if you don't have the lifestyle at home, you're just literally pissing in the wind. So the situation is be prepared. There's no such thing as a magic bullet. Even though there's some amazing bullets in this industry, if you don't have proper nutrition, hydration, stress reduction, and sleep, you're slow dancing.
Let's talk to practitioners. As a leading expert in cellular health, what would you recommend to practitioners to bring in more cellular health into their practice and help more people?
Number one, learn the basics, learn how mitochondria works. Go back and get your biochem books from 7th grade. They're the best teachers, I promise you. It's better than anything you're going to get at any conference, I promise you. Learn it inside and out, and not just the mitochondria. Learn what happens 3 steps before, 3 steps afterwards, and maximize everything in between. That's how I've done it, and that's how we get such great results out of it, because you're not only increasing ATP production, you're increasing how that cell works as a whole.
Let's close with the idea that you have to give 3 implementable steps, and people are going to listen to these 3 things through the whole podcast. What would those 3 things be?
Find yourself a sleep schedule and stick to it. Number one, bed at the same time of night, 1 hour before, get off your electronics. I think that's the most important thing. Number 2 is test as much and as frequently as you want. I want to see in-depth panels. I want to see everything under the sun. I want to know more about you than God does for that one. And number 3, hydration, hydration, hydration. You need at least 2 to 3 liters of water. I like to say 3.5, depending on if you're exercise based. If you can get a gallon and you're a bigger guy like I am, gallon all the way. But again, hydration and sleep, the 2 most important things you can do.
Outstanding. This has been rapid fire. This has been great. The download's going to be awesome. We have to do it again.
Amen. I'm in.
All right. As long as you're in, I'm in. Dr. Ivan, Rob Silverman, Proven Health Alternatives, always yours in health.
Rock and roll, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Outstanding. My pleasure.